everyone. Let's go through an introduction to layers. And the cool thing about this, even though we're using Adobe Fresco, is management of layers counts for basically every kind of creative technology software, whether it's Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop, or even with my students with Toon Boom, Harmony, and Storyboard Pro. Layer management is huge. So this might be specific features to Adobe Fresco, but a lot of the organizing systems, a lot of the making sure that you're separating parts of your image on different layers, a lot of that remains the same across platform. And also practices with locking layers, hiding layers. So we're going to go through this. So on the right, this is your layers panel. You can view all your layers. You got little thumbnails of your layers. Group and reorganize your layers here. So the little symbol next to the layer that tells you the brushes that are used, the brush types that are used in that layer, and what layer type it is. So all of these are pixel, the first few, except for the second to the last. That one has a circle, so that one is vector based, and then the very last one is just an imported image. So that's not really anything right now. So it'll show what type it is on the side, and that matches with the brush types that are over in the left hand corner. So to reorder layers, you're going to long press and drag a layer to move it below others. So let's do that here. Now if I did that, so this is the color for the figure, and the line art is right here on top. So if I did that and reordered it, it's probably going to color, yeah, it's going to cover the line art. So that's why whenever you're making work that has line art, it's a good idea to keep those on separate layers so you can edit them separately. So let's put them back. So this is stacked from all the way to the top. You have what is closest to the viewer, so think of it as things being a little bit farther away. So your background, as you go down, your background is going to be behind everything. So think of it as like a stack of transparent sheets of glass with images on them, because that's historically that's kind of what a lot of these started off with. Whoops. So grouping layers, if you have multiple elements that come together, you just drag one on top of the other. So let's say I want to group the line art from the figure to the color of the figure, because that's a good thing to group together and it makes it just easier to organize. We can drag it on top and then group those together. And when they're grouped, they create kind of the stacking lines underneath it. So if I wanted to ungroup them, I'd have to separate again. So drag one layer on another layer to create a group, or add to an existing one, group layers to perform an action on the entire group at once. So if I tap it again, this is where you have all the layer group actions. Then I can ungroup the layers again. And if you tap a layer that's selected, that's where you have the specific layer actions. And let's see how much this goes through this. So layer actions, these are very basic layer actions, like adding a layer, hiding a layer, and deleting a layer. You can also do things like duplicate, lock layer. There's a lot of things that you can do here on the side. So this is another way you can get to the layer actions. I usually just, when I have the layer selected, I just tap it and that same layer action menu pops up for that layer. So there's two different ways to get to that. layer properties. So when you have a layer selected, right in the upper, so that this first symbol at the top, that indicates the layers. So if you want to hide the layers, then you just tap it to hide them all. So underneath that is the layer properties. And let's move this out of the way. There we go. Use the layer properties panel to add blend modes, adjust opacity, or is it opacity? I don't know. Tomato, tomato. And rename the layer itself. I pretty much never rename the layers. Blend mode's kind of fun because you can play with different effects. So the line art might look different depending on what effect you have. Ooh, that's kind of neat. So it might kind of have a... Let's see. Ooh, divide. So that divide is the opposite of what it is. So yeah, you can play around with that. It also, so changing the opacity is how strong it is. This is really nice if I'm bringing in a sketch, a picture of a sketch, and I want to trace it, but I don't want it covering everything, so I bring down the opacity. So I'm just going to leave it how it is, because I kind of like the white line. Let me see, hue, saturation. Some of these won't appear like they do anything, because this is just a black line. So like color burn, there's not really a color. Okay, maybe there is a color. So the color's popping through the back. That's kind of cool. Okay. So next, show or hide your layers from view here. Yep, already mentioned that. And that's it for these, but I want to show you a few quick more things. So let's say you're done with a lot of the background layers. So this layer right here is locked. That's what that little lock symbol means. Let's say I want to lock this layer too. So right here, that's where you're creating a lock layer. You're locking that layer. Usually if I am wanting to edit something specific on an image, I'll lock the other layer. So let's say if I just want to work on the line art, I'll just go ahead and lock that layer. This is also where you can duplicate the layer, copy the layer, cut the layer, merge down. So merge down is kind of tricky. Let's see, if we unlock this layer, merging down, let's say we want, I'm done working on my line art and my color. I want them to be one. So merging down is merging the two layers together, but you can't undo this. So merge down, bam, it's now one layer. So if I go to the transform tool, ooh, we got one layer here. Alright. The only way to undo that is to press the undo button. If there's things that are layered on top of each other, like line art and color, I don't suggest merging them, but like in this case where you have the different planets here, different planet. Oh, see, we've got the ring from one planet. Those should probably be grouped together on the same layer instead of on this layer. So just some simple layer organizing tips. See how that planet is covering up some mistakes of the other layer behind it from the other planet. So this is some basic layer organizing tips. One thing I like to tell my students is make sure you are working on the right layer. Check it once, check it twice, check it 3 times, because you will be extra mad at yourself if you find you've been working on the wrong layer for an hour. Alright, well, that's it. Thank you for watching.